More people every day are ditching animal products, embracing plant-based foods, and speaking up for what matters. With my experience as an international instructor for vegan nutrition and an award-winning author, I interview experts, innovators, and celebrities about the global movement towards a plant-based future. Do you want to learn how to combat the injustice in our food system affecting your health, the animals, and the planet? Well, you're in the right place. It all starts here with Eating Like You Give a Damn. Welcome to the Eating Like You Give a Damn podcast, the place to discover your passion for plant-based living, one bite at a time. I'm your host, Stephanie Harder. If you've ever found yourself burning the candle at both ends, running yourself ragged and relying on multiple cups of coffee and constant napping just to get you through the day, only to find that no matter how exhausted you are when your head hits that pillow at bedtime, that you're actually wide awake, thinking about how this is impacting your life in the worst of ways. Maybe you've even had a hard time focusing throughout the day. You've been more forgetful and feeling confused more than normal, and maybe even your digestion's gotten out of whack. I think most of us have experienced this at some point in our lives, or maybe you're feeling like that now. According to today's guest, entrepreneurs and moms, especially single moms, are most at risk for these symptoms, which is known as adrenal fatigue. And since she is a single mom who is an entrepreneur, this guest has overcome this debilitating health challenge and now helps others like her to do the same. Heather Carvey is a certified integrative nutrition health coach, up-and-coming holistic nutritionist, a single mom of two, and she's been vegan for 2 years. She overcame severe adrenal fatigue and found a deeper spiritual practice through a plant-based diet. And now she shares her passion for compassionate, high-vibration living with her clients and with her following. In this chat, we talk about what adrenal fatigue is exactly, what's at risk if it's not addressed, and how exactly a plant-based lifestyle helps to combat it. How she went from an overworked, overstressed, and poorly nourished single mom chugging giant cans of Monster energy drink to becoming spiritual nutrition babe to help others overcome adrenal fatigue. And you might find the story of her wake-up call shocking. What it was like to transition her young kids to eat healthy and compassionately. And she shares some valuable tips for parents who are facing challenges with getting family members on board when the kids go to stay with the relatives. Plus, she has an amazing offer designed especially for the entrepreneurial woman who wants to step into her power, cultivate a deeper meaning to her food choices, and up-level her life. So be sure to listen to the end for that. And before we get going with Heather, I want to talk to the health professionals and coaches who are listening. According to metadata, health coaching has emerged as a $6 billion service market, and it's growing. With the rise in awareness about the impacts of our food choices, plant-based health and wellness coaches are in high demand. The problem is that many coaches don't know how to set up an online program that attracts the clients who are looking for their services to overcome a major life or health challenge. So I decided to create a group where plant-based coaches can learn how to serve more people online and build a business that they love that creates a huge impact. Go to eatinglikeyougivadamn.com/coaching to learn more. And now, let's dive deep into the mind of the spiritual nutrition babe herself. Here's Heather Carvey. Heather Carvey, what's up, girlfriend? Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast.
Hey.
So I'm really excited to talk to you and kind of figure out like what your journey's like. Because when I was looking at some of your stuff online, I'm like, oh my God, this is so incredible. You have like such a wealth of knowledge, and you're talking about like spirituality and chakras and how our food kind of like aligns with all of these things. And so this is a space where I'm actually not very well versed in. So it's really cool to connect with you and kind of peel back what that looks like, because I know some listeners are going to be really, really excited to hear what you have to say about that too.
Yeah, that's been something I've been getting into lately, a lot more lately. I know in the beginning of my vegan journey, it was more about like the how do I feed myself thing. And then it just kind of transitioned, and you look at it and you're like, holy cow, there's this entire deeper layer that nobody's talking about. And I really like dug into it, especially lately with my chakra courses and stuff.
Yes. Cool. Let's go ahead and get to like how you got here in the first place. So tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, what your family was like, what you were eating, and like what was your mentality about health back then?
Honestly, like everyone nowadays, they look at me online and they're like, man, you must have this looks like it comes so easy to you. And I'm like, really? I grew up on like bologna sandwiches and cans of Pepsi in my lunchbox and Little Debbie boxes in the cabinets, right? We didn't have very much money. My dad was a mechanic. He was feeding 5 kids and working his butt off, and we didn't have very much money. So it was just the cheapest thing, whatever. And when I grew up, I had an affinity for food. I loved cooking. I remember my ex-husband, he told me one day, he said, if you love cooking so much, why don't you just go to culinary school? And I was like, you know what, you're right. So I went up to LA to Le Cordon Bleu, and I enrolled. And I studied and I worked so hard, and it was like a deep passion of mine. And I even have, looking back now, I have pictures of me posing with like a full roasted pig, like with this huge smile on my face. Like, yeah, look at this cool pig. This is awesome, you know? And I didn't have that connection yet where food was an ingredient, and it was like kind of like paint on a paint, you know what I mean? Like on a canvas. It was art for me. It was creating these lavish dishes and this presentation on this plate. And right out of when I graduated from Le Cordon Bleu in 2009, Food Inc. came out. Mm-hmm. And I remember being at Whole Foods. I was checking out, and I see this DVD on the checkout stand. You know how they stick the DVDs right up front? And I grabbed it and I was like, ooh, Food Inc., this is up my alley. I'm going to do this. And mind you, like at the time I was working, my very first job was at a restaurant called Animal in LA. And it's all animal-based foods.
Right.
And so I watched this movie and my mind was just completely blown. I was like, oh my God, I've been lied to. All of my food is just horrible for me. What am I doing? And I kind of went down this rabbit hole. So that was in 2009, and then in 2014, I went to Ashford University. I enrolled. I was kind of going off and on like the plant-based thing. Around that time in 2014, I met my youngest father. He was 410 pounds. I was like, oh, I really wanted him to lose weight for his health, right? I was like, there's no way this isn't healthy. So I started us going on like a plant-based journey. Juicing, and we watched a bunch of documentaries like Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. I bought a juicer and we would juice all the time. And I was really on this mission to like help him lose the weight. I was like, my dad's had like 8 heart attacks in his life. Like, it's insane. Oh, wow. I was like, there is no way this guy's going to end up dying. Like, I've got to save him. I was like on a mission, you know. And so I was taking him on the plant-based journey, and he lost 150 pounds within a year without exercise. And I was like, wow, there's something to this. This is really cool. Like, food is powerful. Like, so in 2014, we were still together. I enrolled in school, and I got my bachelor's degree in alternative health. And then my senior year, I doubled up because I was like, man, college isn't quite giving me exactly what I need. So I doubled up and I went to IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, to become a health coach. And there I learned all these they teach like over 150 different dietary theories. But their premise and their way of coaching and the way that I coach with my clients is crowding in versus crowding out. So basically we're just talking about how many things you can add into your diet versus how many things you're pulling out. Because I think when people transition, they focus so much on, I can't have this, I can't have this, I can't have this, instead of what am I bringing in? And it changes the dynamic in the way that you look at transitioning over into a plant-based diet. So then in 2018, last year, I was health coaching for a while. 2017, I hit severe adrenal fatigue. So I was already graduated from IIN in 2016. 2017, I hit severe adrenal fatigue. I was a single mom at the time. It was my first time with 2 kids by myself. And I was so tired. I was hitting like massive migraines every day. I was trying to be a health coach, but I felt like a fraud because I was so exhausted and beyond like my means. I was eating like hot dogs and Snickers and donuts at 3 a.m. like from a gas station.
Yeah.
Like I was just so tired and I didn't care about anything. I was telling people online like, hey, to be healthy, but then in the backstory, I was like destroying my body. You know what I mean? And I remember the breaking point was when my youngest, she's almost 5 now, but she was 2 at the time. And I brought my girls up because I was working night shift. I brought my oldest up. I laid her on the bed. And as soon as my arm hit the bed to put her down, I was out because I was beyond depleted. And I forgot my 2-year-old in the car overnight.
Wow.
I woke up in the morning and I was like, where is Emery? Where did she go? Like, why isn't she awake? She should be awake watching TV. I panicked, like my heart just dropped. And I was like, oh my God. And I ran to the car and she was okay. She was a little panicked, but she was okay. And it was just a huge wake up call for me. I'm like, I have to change. Something has to change. I'm putting myself and my kids in danger. Mm-hmm. And I was burning the candle on both ends. I wasn't taking care of my body. I wasn't sleeping. I was eating like crap. And I knew at that moment that there is no going back from this. Like it's either I change or I'm done. Like I might as well just give my kids to their fathers and just, And so I had a friend reach out to me and she said, have you heard of the medical medium? And I'm like, no, I don't know. What is that? And she was telling me about Epstein-Barr and how certain things in the body can feed like pathogenic bacteria, right? Mm-hmm. So like the eggs that I was eating, I didn't know that I had chickens growing up. So I was like, there's nothing wrong with eggs. They lay eggs every day. Like, what's the big deal? And she told me, she said, no, like when they're growing pathogenic bacteria in the lab, they use egg protein to grow that bacteria. So you're feeding this bad bacteria in your gut. You're making yourself worse. It's like, oh crap, And then I'm looking more into his stuff and he's talking about how all of the animal-based foods are really taxing on your liver and your kidneys, and it's just destroying your body. It's making you more tired. And I was like, well, I don't want to be more tired. I need more energy. How do I get more energy? I was like desperate. And so I ended up falling back into the plant-based thing. I was like, oh, well, there it is again. Why does this plant-based thing keep popping up into my life? Like, what is this? And so I said, screw it. I'm going to go plant-based. In October of 2017, I went plant-based. And I call it like the 6-month stumbling block, right? It was 6 months of like screwing up massively over and over and over again. But in that time, like you start out going plant-based and then you end up transitioning into vegan, which is like a totally different, like your heart opens. And I didn't understand how that happened until like later on I was looking into like digging into more stuff and trying to do my spiritual journey. And I noticed that my spiritual path got a lot easier with time. Mm-hmm. And I was like starting to put pieces together and doing like my journaling and stuff. And I was like, hold on a second. Like as soon as I went on a plant-based diet, plant is the color green. Green is the color of the heart chakra. I didn't even know what chakras were at the time. And then they just kept popping up. And I have a deep affinity for learning. So I started learning everything. And I started putting the pieces together and going, oh, wow, like if you eat more plants, more greens, it opens up your heart. Your heart is where your compassion is at. Like the avocados are heart healthy fats, and then the things that hurt your heart is too much of the bad fats and like the reds. So it's complementary, right? So too many animal products can actually cause heart disease. And the way to fix that is through plants. And I was like, wow, this is really cool that it's all correlated with like this whole spiritual system. And then looking through like the medical mediums texts and stuff too. Now, like I go back on it because I always go, you read something and you pick something out of it and then you come back to it later and you're like, oh, I didn't even see that before. Like it's like reading a whole nother book. And he's got these spiritual meanings to all of his foods that he puts in there. And that's something that like all of my schooling and everything, nothing was talking about. I mean, they touch on like traditional Chinese medicine with the hot and colds, and they do like Ayurvedic. And then even in the yoga system, you have the Sattvic diet, which is pretty much a vegan diet, except they do dairy, but they make it specifically known that if you're doing dairy, you have to wait until the baby cow is done before you take the milk. And I know nobody is doing that.
Right, yeah. That's probably a distinction that many people just don't really, think too deeply about, because that's not the culture that we were raised in, right? So so people, as they're learning that, they're like, oh well, they'll learn something new, and I hear people like they'll teach what they've learned, but not necessarily understanding why it was designed a certain way.
Right. Yeah, I have clients reaching out to me all the time about that. They're like, I don't understand. This is what I've known my whole life. And I'm like, honestly, it's marketing. You're being taught marketing. You're being sold a product. And it's ingrained in us from birth. You know what I mean? And I feel like they really prey on parents' fears. I know I had those fears going plant-based. I had to transition my kids. And I was like, oh man, like, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong and I hurt my children even more? Like, it's always a parent's fear. Like, what if I'm not giving them what they need, and I've had to retrain not only how to feed myself, especially coming out of culinary school. I thought I had that down.
Yeah.
And then I had to relearn everything. They don't use tofu and nutritional yeast and tempeh, and they don't use any of that.
Right.
In culinary school, it's like half a stick of butter and 1 or 3 animals. It's like,
sure, because it's all about, in the culinary world, it's all about, just giving people what they want, and that's taste. People are, they don't understand for the most part that they're compromising their health for taste. But yeah, in the culinary world, it's all the cream and the cheese and the butter and all that stuff, all the fattening and salty agents and sugar,
But I feel like most of it, like, they don't really care. Like, I think at a base level, we all know that.
Sure.
All of my clients know they should be eating more broccoli, more vegetables. The underlying problem, which is why I started digging into the spirituality, is because everyone knows they should be eating better. Mm-hmm. But there's an underlying deeper issue under the surface of why you're not doing it. Where are the emotional and spiritual aspects of your diet, and how is that impacting you, and why is it controlling what choices you make currently?
That makes so much sense too. So then how could somebody determine what their underlying why is? How can they connect with whatever that is that's suppressing them from doing what they know that they should probably do for their health?
I feel like most people restrict themselves or hold themselves back from changing or doing the healthy things because of a few things. One, it's difficult. It's the unknown. It's scary. They think they've been taught their whole life that that's wrong. So this is going against everything that they know. There's a social dynamic aspect of it where you feel like you're going to be outcast, and we're tribal by nature. I mean, in order to survive in the jungle, you're going to be kind of screwed if you're out there by yourself. You need multiple people. Your chances of survival increase with a tribe. So we're tribal by nature. So there's that aspect to it. There's a worthiness aspect to it where the foods like sugars and high amounts of fats and stuff like that can increase the dopamine levels in our body. So we become addicted to that instant. I feel like majority of the society nowadays is like an instant quick fix. They're very impatient. So they just want that quick hit of dopamine. I just want to feel better right away. My heart is broken. Give me something fatty, sugary, salt, to fix it real quick. And then that's it. Because they don't see the long-term stuff. No one thinks like, oh, it'll be fine now because I'm not getting an immediate pain. There's no immediate pain associated with that. It's a long-term pain. So they would rather have that short-term quick fix and deal with the long-term pain later.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And that's a distinction that you made for yourself, and then you had a particular shift. So what was that? So you talked about the moment that you left your little girl in the car overnight, right? Mm-hmm. Was that the big moment that just kind of like shifted everything for you, and you realized like, I got to do something different, and this different thing is going to have an element to it where I need to share this with other people so other people don't make the same mistakes that I have. or learn how to recover from some of the mistakes that they've made in the process. Is that kind of like when you had your shift to say, this is your calling?
Yeah, I think that was more of like a survival thing where it was like sink or swim at that point. I was burning my candle at both ends, basically. I mean, my dad did the same thing. I grew up watching him fall asleep at the computer. He was an entrepreneur. He had his own business, and that's who I coach now as entrepreneurs. But he had his own business, and he would fall asleep on the shop floor, and he was working. I never saw him because he was working constantly, and he burned himself into the ground. He had 8 heart attacks, and I was sitting there thinking like, oh, I don't have any heart attacks. I'm fine, whatever. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm at this point where you get into like the mud with adrenal fatigue, where you feel like you can't get out, and you've burned yourself down so much that no level of caffeine is getting you out of it. I was drinking about a pot of coffee a day and 4 Monster energy drinks a day. Oof. Yeah, people that know me before, like, I would get those huge cans and it would do nothing. I mean, it was awful. So I think, like, when you get to that point and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel and you're just literally trying to survive day by day, something like that to jolt you out of it was like a sink or swim moment. So it was like, I either fix my health or I lose my children. And I think for like a mother's perspective, like, your kids are everything, so we would much rather take care of our kids than ourselves. And at that moment, I made the connection where I have to take care of myself in order to take care of my kids. And it was like a huge realization. And I think like the spiritual undertones and the emotional undertones and all of that came later, because I was forced into fixing myself, so abruptly.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk about what adrenal fatigue is, because I know that that's something that, most people don't really understand. So tell us a little bit about what that is and what it feels like. How does somebody know that they might possibly be experiencing adrenal fatigue?
Adrenal fatigue is funky because a lot of medical doctors act like it doesn't exist. It's not real. It's like HPA axis dysfunction, right? So you have your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenals, and they're all connected, and they fire off signals to each other to stimulate your energy, right? Your ATP, your energy cells and stores in your body. Basically, when you're overstressed, your body has like 2 different states. It has the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And the sympathetic, I always get these 2 mixed up, but I remember the parasympathetic as a parachute. So it's like your savior, right? And the sympathetic is like a sympathy. I feel sorry for you. You're struggling, right? So the sympathetic dominance is when your body is like constantly in that stress. And we need stress in our life. Stress is a good thing. It gives us that instant jolt of adrenaline to our muscles to run, like, go, a lion is chasing me, we need to run. But your body doesn't quite understand the difference between running from a lion and being in the car in traffic and you're missing your bills and your kids are screaming and you're like, and you're like in that full red zone, right? Your body doesn't understand that. So if you're constantly stressing out, your adrenals are constantly pumping out massive amounts of adrenaline and cortisol to try to counteract this level of stress that you're under. And at a certain point, your body just goes kind of wonky, right? So your cortisol levels get reversed where you're extremely exhausted in the morning, and then it rises up towards the night, which is backwards because you're supposed to have more cortisol in the morning to give you more energy, and it's supposed to taper down into the night when you're going to sleep, right? With the natural circadian rhythms. And the problem with adrenal fatigue is your body just gets completely burnt out. Your adrenals get burnt out. And your HPA, like your systems start misfiring, right? So then it doesn't matter like what you're doing, you're just completely exhausted. And I noticed when I started looking into things, like a lot of the protocols out there call for animal products in order to fix it, and they're completely outdated. They talk about like, if you want to fix your liver, you want to eat a liver. If you want to fix your adrenals, you're going to eat some adrenal glands. And it's like, what in the world is this nonsense? I'm not eating glands of an animal to fix myself. And I was able to fix it with different protocols, with the medical medium protocols, and balancing out my potassium sodium ratio. I started drinking celery juice every morning, which has mineral salts in it that help heal the adrenals. I started doing things like licorice root teas, tulsi, ashwagandha, rhodiola, things like that. I had to completely cut caffeine, which sucked because you can't have too many stimulants when you're trying to heal your adrenals. Your body needs to get back into its natural rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to cut caffeine. I turned to, I use Tea-Chino now, which is like an herbal tea. It tastes like coffee. I use beetroot powder in my smoothies. Beets are amazing for energy boost, things like that. A lot of B12, which surprisingly everyone is deficient in because your stress burns through your B12 and it also burns through your magnesium. So your magnesium controls like your moods and your B12 controls your energy. So that's why when people are stressed, a lot of them are tired and depressed,
Right.
because they're so stressed out, because you're burning through these natural micronutrients in your body. So adrenal fatigue, it can look like an inability to go to sleep. And once you fall asleep, you have a hard time getting up. Like no amount of sleep is enough. Even if you sleep like 10, 12 hours, you're like, God, why am I still exhausted? I was falling asleep standing up. It was insane. I had chronic headaches. I had irritability. Your body, when it's on like that constant like stress mode, you have to think about that survival. So certain systems shut down. Your reproductive system shuts down. So my periods started either going completely gone or all wonky. Your digestive system shuts down. So I was having a hard time digesting my food. Your endocrine system shuts down, so your detoxification. So I was starting to stack up on like heavy metals, things like that. And then when you're around people that are inefficient, because that's really detrimental to your survival, right? If you have somebody that's slow or they're doing things wrong, it fires off, like you get really angry. So you get a lot of mood imbalances with adrenal fatigue too. And I noticed every single day, it didn't matter what my kids were doing. They're just being kids, but I was screaming at them because I was like, what are you doing? Like, because I was in that constant state of stress, and that survival is telling me like everything has to be efficient or it's not working. You know what I mean? We need to survive. We're on war zone in my head. So there's a lot of different symptoms for it. Adrenal fatigue is kind of it's a cluster of symptoms that come from a chronic state of stress, really, is what it comes down to.
Right. And then what happens if somebody starts to recognize that maybe they're spiraling, into this whole adrenal fatigue, situation, and if they don't address it? What's to come if it's not addressed and the problem isn't solved?
If it's not solved, adrenal fatigue with the stress and stuff, it's just different things can happen. Like your immune system gets kind of shot. You might develop digestive problems. You might develop like chronic diseases, like because your immune system's not really functioning properly, and the lack of like sleeping properly and constant stress and anger, they all accumulate into different things. So it just kind of spirals, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Who would you say is at risk?
Well, I work with a lot of women, a lot of moms, single moms, entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Hands down. I had kind of a triple whammy with all three. I'm a single mom and entrepreneur, and the kids. I was like, it's constant go, 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 go. And when you're not giving back to yourself and refilling, you have to. I feel like there's almost like a martyrship when it comes to motherhood. And also with entrepreneurs, there's that hustle, hustle, hustle mentality where you're supposed to just go, go, go and grind. And there is no time, like it's almost frowned upon to like take care of yourself, to stop and go take a bubble bath, go take a day off, go relax, It's frowned upon, but it's almost crucial. You can't really, I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, your body, like you are the vessel. You are taking your clients somewhere. You are taking your kids somewhere in life, right? So no one's going to want to get in your car if your car has never been vacuumed out and it smells and you're not taking care of it. And you're really not going to go anywhere if the car has no gas. So you really have to take care of yourself, like first and foremost above
That's such
everything.
A great analogy. I love that. Analogies are our friend. They totally help to explain and give a visual to like, what it is we want to teach. I love that. So let's talk about the solution. So moving into the solution phase where, like you said, you had that whole triple whammy going on in your life and you overcame that. And now you've got vibrant energy. You feel very much aligned and this is great. So for people that really want to get to that place where they're out of the thick of this and they're feeling great again, what are some of the steps that they need to take in order to get there?
There's a couple. So first and foremost, you got to lower your stress load. So looking at areas of your life that are stressing you out and energy draining things, right? So that could be certain toxic relationships you're in. If your home is not a safe space, if your job is stressing you out, maybe look for a different one, if bills are stacking up, maybe realign some of those. You have to reduce your stress load for sure. And some of that is mindset too, understanding like some things are not controllable. So you don't have to get pissed off at everything. You know what I mean? And then the second thing is to take care of your body. And that's a big part of where I come in with introducing celery juice in the morning. That was a huge game changer for me. That saved me. Reducing stimulants, and then utilizing a plant-based diet, because I didn't realize this until I was vegan and I started digging into the spiritual things. But when you're trying to get rid of like stress and anxiety in your life, and that constant state of fear and that sympathetic dominance, right? You don't want to be ingesting something that has that energy to it, right? If you think about like an animal in its last hours of life, it's not the happy cows that we see on a carton. They're terrified, and I saw it and I felt it. I'm very empathic. So like watching these documentaries and I see these animals and they're in pain, and they're terrified, that energy goes into the food. I mean, we can cook our food with love, but it's really hard to pull love out of a product that's built off of pain. So I just started noticing, like, if I want, like, all of these foods, everything that's coming into my life is like impacting my energy and my vibration, my emotions, my state of being, right? Then the only things that I want coming into my body are things that are going to help me become what I'm looking for. So a whole food plant-based diet, not the processed vegan foods that we see out there. Those are not healthy whatsoever. A whole food plant-based diet, things that are vibrating high. So if we look at like the Kirlian photography, it shows that organic foods are vibrating higher than conventional. And if you look at like a broccoli, it's like glowing, and then a piece of meat is like there's nothing, there's no life left. So yeah, and bringing in as much nutrient dense foods as we can, and learning to heal your body from like a plant-based perspective. The earth is very healing. And then I mean, like the supplements and stuff help too, like B12. You can rely on the herbs, which again is plant-based. So like rhodiola, ashwagandha, licorice root, the teas. They're very helpful.
Okay, excellent. And these are all things that you teach as part of your coaching. So that way, when people come to you, because it's like, it's one thing to like hear the information. It's like, okay, yeah, I got to cut back my stress. Yeah, I got to start eating right. But then, people have the best of intentions, but really what it comes down to is, if somebody really wants to get better at something, 9 times out of 10, they need to turn to a coach, right? So, I mean, even some of even the biggest celebrities, they all have some sort of a coach in order to get better at whatever it is that they're doing, right? Think about sports. They all have coaches to, because sure, like, how to play football, right? But if you want to be the best, you need that coach to kind of get you there. So this is one of those things where I just, want to make sure that people understand, like, we can consume information all day long. We are consumers of information constantly, right? And information is overwhelming, right? Because there's so many different opinions and points of view out there. But when you find something that really resonates and you find yourself in a place of pain, where you're in deep pain, you have a problem in your life, it's a big problem that you want to solve, you would go to somebody to help get you over that hump, right? So, and that's something that you offer, which is really awesome. So then, so let's talk a little bit about like how you got to this place where you're helping other people to, overcome adrenal fatigue and other things too. Like you were talking about, aligning with the chakras and becoming more spiritual aligned with what you're consuming. So tell us a little bit about that part of that, and what does it look like to work with you as a coach?
I feel like veganism in itself, like just going vegan, going plant-based it's kind of like being that person in a horror movie, then you're the only person that can see the ghosts and you're like screaming at everyone like, hey, do you guys see it? Hello, pay attention. And everyone's just looking at you like, what is this crazy person talking about? But I feel like when you find something that's so life-changing and it just completely shakes you at your core, that you naturally just want to tell everyone. I mean, we do that with like the dumbest things like products, right? You're like, oh my God, this toothpaste is the coolest, but when it's something that's so big as our diet and you realize everyone's being lied to, all this stuff is really bad, all this stuff is happening under the scenes and under wraps, and you're like, you just want to start like, hello, everybody, pay attention. And then I've naturally, honestly, I don't know why it is, but people just feel naturally inclined to come up and tell me their entire life. I've had people multiple times at different jobs. They just sit next to me and they're like, I don't know why I feel like I can just talk to you, but I do. And I'm like, can I have your name first before you spill your but it's fine. I mean, I guess it's just that in that natural coaching ability, people just want to open up to me and talk to me. And I like to provide a safe space because I know, especially in the vegan community, I hit it myself where I was really looking for that support from peers, right? And I wasn't finding it in my day-to-day life. So I looked online and then the whole vegan community, there's this subgroup of them with the activists, and they can just be really aggressive and come from this energy space that's just very angry. And it wasn't resonating with me at all. And I'm like, oh, I don't want that. I want a happy space. So if you cut back from four hamburgers to 3, I'm going to high five you. You're awesome. You're doing great. I understand. It took me over 8 years to transition. So I get it. I just want to provide a safe space for people to grow into it and evolve. I mean, the whole spiritual aspect of things, it takes time. Personal development, it definitely takes time. I feel like some people go vegan overnight because it hits them in their heart and they're like, oh my God, I feel bad. But then they're plagued with this guilt. And the transition is still happening. And then you have that 6-month stumbling block, right? So what I did, because I'm kind of a nomad, I like to travel a lot. And well, now we're kind of rooted in Phoenix, but I do all of my work online. So I create digital courses and I coach people with Zoom. We do Zoom calls. And I just talk them through things. We figure out what they're struggling with, and we come up with 1 to 3 things that they can tweak between when we talk and the next time we talk. And that's with my one-on-one coaching. So they'll have some homework assignments. They have unlimited Voxer access. I check in with them constantly, send them recipes, whatever they need help with. And then I have group coaching programs and a couple go at your own pace programs where they can just log online and do that whole digital course access type of style of stuff.
Fantastic. And I know that there was something since you had mentioned earlier about your two little ones, I know that there's some listeners that are maybe thinking, well, as a mom, when you made this transition for yourself, what was it like getting your little ones on board with that? What are their ages? And then was it difficult to try and get them maybe off of, let's say, chicken nuggets and French fries and onto something more healthier? Or what was that like for you?
Well, when I had them, honestly, when I was in college is when I had both my kids. And I was studying alternative health. So they've never had chicken nuggets and French fries. I was always big on the health thing. I might not have been plant-based at the time, but I was always no processed food, no junk food, no soda. We did struggle a little bit with snacks, things my youngest loved goldfish, things like that. She goes to school and she's like, Mommy, they have cupcakes. I'm like, those are not vegan. She's like, but they're vegan cupcakes. Just because you call it vegan does not make it vegan. She doesn't quite understand. But then they make the connection. They have a lot of like really great Ruby Roth books. They're 4 and 7, by the way. My 4-year-old turns 5 next month. But Ruby Roth makes a bunch of books about veganism. I've brought them with me. They're really close with the whole vegan community. So we go to Ryan Nelson's gym out in Tempe at Los Campeones, and the girls absolutely love going. They love Ryan. We hang out with Ben. Like they go with me to the vegan animal liberation march. They've gone with me everywhere. They're very big on. I joke with the community. I'm like, you guys don't invite me to stuff. You just want my kids to come. So, I mean, we met with Vegan Evan, and Phoenix is good friends with him now, and they invited us, his mom, Shannon, invited us to do the Animal Hero Kids Foundation. So they do that. Like, there's a lot of different sources for vegan kids now and transitioning, and it just comes from a lot of open communication with them, because they really do understand, and kids really don't want to hurt the animals, you know. So as soon as you explain to them, this is what this product is doing, they really make that connection. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? A lot easier than an adult would, where they have like 30 years of habit built up and their ego gets in the way. You know, a kid is like pure. They're like, wait, I don't want to hurt the cow, mommy. Like, wait, you know? So I feel like it's a little bit easier with kids. And then they, honestly, like my kids love their vegetables. They eat a lot better now, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just better in the long run.
For sure. And have you ever run into any challenges, say like in your family or maybe with your exes, you know, with the kids' fathers? Like, have you run into any challenges with them maybe concerned about their kids being raised as vegan?
No, just because they know, like, I'm studying holistic nutrition right now with the Energetic Health Institute, and all of my knowledge and stuff, they know that I'm not doing it just because I watched a video. Like, I do extensive training on it and understanding and educated background mm-hmm. to it. So they know that it's best for the girls, and they trust my reasons. My youngest father, they just stayed with him, and they did the whole plant-based thing while the girls stayed with him for 2 weeks. And then they stayed at their grandparents' house in Florida over the summer for 6 weeks, and they did the whole plant-based thing. So I feel like it's really cool, because their family, I've been open and communicative, and like, hey, just, you know, the girls are very adamant. They're like, is that vegan? Oh, what if it's not vegan? You know? So the family's been really supportive of it. Just because they know it's coming from a health mm-hmm. standpoint than just a personal opinion. So I'm not attacking them personally. I just want what's best for my kids.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been that bad as far, like, with the family aspect of it. I know people struggle with that, though. That's a big one.
Yeah. That's definitely something that, you know, I've seen even in the Eating Like You Give a Damn Facebook group. I've seen some moms that, you know, unfortunately they're very frustrated just because other family members or, you know, their kids' fathers, they just mm-hmm. don't get it. And I know that they're just kind of looking maybe for some probably camaraderie with other moms that have kind of experienced something like that, and maybe some tips on, you know, how to handle that situation. But yeah, you're definitely an anomaly.
I feel like honestly, I feel like honestly, like, as far as that goes, like, what I tell my clients when they have, like, they're not as cooperative, is just getting the kids on board. You know, because kids have a way of, like, if they straight up say, like, I don't want to eat that. I don't want to eat that. That comes from an animal. That means that an animal got hurt. I don't want to eat my animal friends. A lot of parents, they're not going to sit there and argue with their kids mm-hmm. nonstop, you know, to try to get them to eat something. So I don't know, maybe there's some, you know, parents out there that are super, you know, into, no, I'm right, you're going to eat it. But for the most part, if you get the kids on board, when they go over to the other parent's house, they can be your voice, and then you don't have to sit there, because I feel like a lot of times the spouse doesn't really care what you're saying. It's just the fact that you're saying it if you don't have a good relationship with them. So if the kids are saying it too, and they're like, hey, I really don't want to eat this hurts my heart, then the parents are more likely to listen to the kid than the ex. So they're like, I don't want to listen to you. I don't have to do what you mm-hmm. say, you know, so.
Yeah, that's huge. That's really good. So as we start to come to a close, Heather, I could probably sit here and chat with you all day, especially like I love looking at your labyrinth tattoo on your arm, by the way. I meant to mention that earlier for listeners because I'm just like, dude, this girl's got the most awesome tattoo of like my favorite childhood movie. I could just stare at it all the time. I love it. Yes. It's awesome. Yep. I love Labyrinth. But yeah, so as we come to a close, is there anything that you would really like listeners to know and then tell us, you know, how they can connect with you and go deeper with you?
I would say if they're newly transitioning, just to give themselves grace. Like, don't feel like you have to do it overnight. It's completely okay. Everyone's on their own journey, and you're going to stumble a lot in the beginning, which is fine. If you are struggling with adrenal fatigue, or you think you may, definitely work on upping the plants, getting your energy from plants. Plants have a ton of energy, and reducing the stress and the stimulants. And then I think I gave you have a coupon code, right?
Yes, we
do.
For
your followers, the Eligad code for my chakra program for their Balance Babe. Yeah, Balance Babe is my newest program, one of my newest. I have a one-on-one that I just opened, but for the group coaching program, it's one of my newest ones. And we go through 8 weeks, where each week we cover one of the chakras, and the chakras cover a lot. Like the root chakra would cover your trust and your foundation and your security, right? And then the sacral is the feminine, and the solar plexus is the confidence, right? And the heart is compassion. So we go through each one of them each week. And then the chakras 1 through 5. So the root through the throat, those have 4 recipe cards in them. They're plant-based recipe cards and meal plans in them that are correlated with each of the chakras to help you align spiritually with those. The top 2 don't really correlate with food. Those are more where your water fasting and your dry fasting happen up in your third eye and your crown. But the first through the 6 all have recipe cards and all of your spiritual tools to help you feel more aligned in your life, from stones to oils to meditations, journaling prompts, stuff like that. We walk through each one of the chakras in that program.
Fantastic. And then, so for Balanced Babe, what's the big outcome that somebody that takes this journey with you, what is it that they can expect to receive in the end?
That one's really cool because especially if you're into personal development, because I think a lot of times we hear all this stuff when we're reading all these books and we're like, where do I start? What do I do? You know what I mean? You're like, I don't feel aligned. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I need to read this book. Oh, I have to journal more. And you just kind of feel all over the place. And what I found with the chakra system and the energy system is it's kind of like a navigation system. It's a map, right? And it teaches you, hey, if you're struggling with your confidence, that's centered in your solar plexus. Maybe you need to work on your confidence in your solar plexus with the yellow, go out into the sun. It's correlated with carbohydrates. So maybe you need to up your carbohydrates and your energy levels and your leadership. And it's really cool how it's all correlated. And then you can kind of like navigate it with the imbalances and understand like, oh, I'm struggling here. I need to focus on these foods and these things to help me balance that out, you know. So it's just a really cool navigation system as far as personal development goes, and working with food to help create more of an aligned life.
Okay, perfect. And I'm going to make sure that I put the coupon code in the show notes for that program that you're offering. We're for Balanced Babe. But tell us where we can find you online and connect with you and learn more about what you're teaching.
I'm mainly these days, I'm on Instagram at Spiritual Nutrition Babe. It's all one word. Or on Facebook, it's just under Heather Carvey. I have a Facebook group that's really cool. It's women only currently, but that's called the Plant-Based Collective. So that one's really, really neat. And then I have my website, has all my stuff, heathercarvey.com.
Fantastic. Well, Heather, it's been so awesome having you as a guest on the show. Thank you so much for enlightening us on all of this amazing stuff that you have to share, and looking forward to seeing more of you here in the near future. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
That was Heather Carvey, holistic nutritionist and also known as Spiritual Nutrition Babe. If you want to learn more about how a plant-based diet can be your spiritual awakening, be sure to check out her website at heathercarvey.com. And if you want to enroll for Heather's Balanced Babe course to align with your highest self, be sure to follow the link for that course in the show notes and use the code ELIGAD at checkout for 25% off. That ELIGAD, of course, stands for Eating Like You Give a Damn. And whether you connect with Heather on social media or in her course, don't forget to tell her you heard about her here on the Eating Like You Give a Damn podcast. I want to give a special shout out to our regular listeners. I see your posts on social and your awesome reviews coming in, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you. You are the reason why I do this work with this podcast and within our community. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your support and your participation in these conversations that are so important for us to have and to share with others. And in the spirit of your support, I also want to let you know that another form of my outreach is in helping plant-based health coaches and wellness professionals to create a successful coaching business online so that they can be found by the people who need their help. With so many people suffering from chronic disease and illnesses that can be reversed with the power of a plant-based diet, plant-based health coaches are in demand, but they need to be visible in the online marketplace with the right solution where their coaching clients can find them to get the help that they desperately need. And I believe that by helping these plant-based wellness pros to showcase the power of plant-based living to the world, that helps more animals and our planet too. So while I ramp up on serving these coaches and health professionals, I'm going to adjust the frequency of our episodes releasing here. So beginning in October, you can expect for episodes to release on the first and third Monday of each month. So that's every other week. And if you like what you just heard, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you're notified as soon as new episodes release, because I don't want you to miss out on the insights of these incredible guests. And come follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Eating Like You Give a Damn. And don't forget to join our group of rebels for recipes and support on your vegan-friendly journey at eatinglikeyougivadamn.com/group. That wraps us up for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, veg on, rebels.